Previously on the Digimon Cross Wars critique. We're going to start talking about a fan favorite villain, DarkKnightmon. Fans of the show seem to think that DarkKnightmon is the best villain in the season. I couldn't agree with them more. He's powerful, engaged in the story, and commands more of a presence than Baggermon could ever hope to command. And now, the thrilling conclusion. DarkKnightmon is introduced to the story as Nene's partner, and as soon as he popped out of Nene's X-Loader, I think everyone thought the same thing. Who the hell is this, and why do I think he's going to end up murdering everyone? Just look at this monster. Design-wise, he's definitely intimidating, and I am a sucker for the mega-level metallic look, even though in Cross Wars there are no levels. I also like the non-symmetrical arm weapons. He's got a big old red spear on one side and a giant axe arm plate thing on the other. Overall, the second best designed Digimon of the season, topped only by Tactimon for the simple reason that samurai helmets are always cooler than cow horns. Always. I guess I should also mention that DarkKnightmon is not a naturally formed Digimon, rather the combination of two Digimon crossed together. His original forms are SkullKnightmon and DeadlyAxemon, both of whom had me chuckling a little bit when they first came on screen. SkullKnightmon because the way his head is so round and has the teensy tiny little horns at the top, it kept reminding me of the Bad Cuz dog toys. DeadlyAxemon fares better in the design department though for me. I'm kinda digging the little four-legged bug thing they've got going on here. But I think the name DeadlyAxemon is just a little bit silly. Now with those little nitpicks aside, it was actually kind of cool to see that DarkKnightmon was actually a crossed Digimon. It was revealed, I thought, in a very decent way in the jungle fight. And I also like how the show, instead of using the fact that DarkKnightmon is two Digimon crossed together as an Achilles heel, like something that could be exploited, instead they use it as a form of ace in the hole, and something that can be proven very devastating when used in the correct strategy. Man, I wish Shoutmon would do stuff like that, that'd be awesome. Okay, so how does DarkKnightmon rack up as a villain? I've already said that I think he's a better villain than Baggermon, which honestly isn't saying a lot when you consider the fact that I think Blastmon would be a better main villain than Baggermon. At least then the show would be funnier. I mean, heck, I'd even go as far to say that Mattermon would be a better main villain than Baggermon, only because I would much rather watch Mattermon do nothing but eat and judge cake than listen to Baggermon keep droning on about the D5. Do I sound bitter? Well, I am. Want to know why? Because DarkKnightmon is 10 times the villain Baggermon could ever hope to be, and the one this show could have desperately used. Like I said, DarkKnightmon is introduced to the show as Nene's partner, and you can probably tell, judging by Nene's distant and mysterious behavior, that something's up between these two. As it turns out, DarkKnightmon has kidnapped Nene's brother, and is using him as leverage to get Nene to help him gather enough dark energy for him to create his own X-Loader. Though after several emotional confrontations, Nene eventually leaves DarkKnightmon, with Taiki promising to help Nene get her brother back. But this doesn't seem to inconvenience DarkKnightmon for too long, because after getting Kiryu to touch this magical orb thing that absorbs all of his negative energy, Kiryu then also enters a hypnotic state, where he becomes DarkKnightmon's new partner. But this partnership doesn't last too long and is resolved in the traditional Digimon way, with kids beating the crap out of each other.
Here, take this! Sicko!
Then we proceed to have a boring fight scene, where hundreds of nameless Bagger Army soldiers get mercilessly slaughtered, and DarkKnightmon reveals that he now has enough negative energy to create his own Dark X-Loader. Then after failing to kill the heroes, he just kinda sods off for a while, so the show can make time to reveal to the audience what Baggermon looks like, and have him be the center of attention for a couple episodes. But to be honest, I was kind of disappointed that they revealed Baggermon to us. Mostly because I knew that now that they've revealed Baggermon, we wouldn't be focusing on DarkKnightmon anymore, at least for a while. In fact, I don't think he appears in the show again until Tactimon and Taiki are sent to the real world. Which once again is very disappointing to me because I was far more interested in finding out what DarkKnightmon's plans were than anything Taiki and the Bagger Army were doing, with the only possible exception being finding out more about Nene. But DarkKnightmon was a very fascinating character. I mean, he had very shifty alliances, he had an obvious spy working in the Bagger Army, whose main goal was seemingly to kill off all the Bagger Army head officers. He had just developed what could be a new super weapon. He was proactively moving from zone to zone, trying to accomplish a mission that we haven't really figured out what it is yet. And he has a personal connection to all three of the heroes now. He seemingly kidnapped Nene's brother and forced her to work for him. He's possessed Kyria and leached off his negative energy, and even fought him a couple times. He's also personally met Taiki and fought with him a few times. And also, if Taiki wants to keep his promise to Nene and save her brother, he will probably have to fight and kill DarkKnightmon. For all these reasons, I felt that DarkKnightmon was being groomed to replace Baggermon as the head villain, because I thought the show was gonna kill off Baggermon halfway through or something. But no, instead DarkKnightmon decides to go and work for Baggermon because they're brothers? My only complaint with the fact that they're brothers is the fact that the story doesn't really do anything with this unique relationship. Typically, whenever a story introduces a character as someone's brother, the two share a scene about, their childhood growing up together, or talk about their parents. Something very specific to a sibling character. With the DarkKnightmon-Baggermon relationship, I don't really think DarkKnightmon need to be his brother. I mean, they could have just been close friends, and it wouldn't really have changed their relationship at all. They don't seem to have any brotherly love towards each other. Anyway, now we get into the second half of the season, and I think this is where DarkKnightmon completely, without any question, took the reins away from Baggermon. Because as of this point, DarkKnightmon appears to be running every aspect of the Bagger Army. I mean, he already created the Dark X-Loader. Why not let him lead the Bagger Army into war and run all of the war rooms with the Death Generals? You would think even someone as seemingly lazy as Baggermon would want to meet with his generals every once in a while. But no, better let your lower officer who you suspect may be trying to kill you meet with them. But it's stuff like that that really just solidifies my argument that DarkKnightmon should have become the main villain halfway through the season. For all three heroes, DarkKnightmon represents a goal that they want to achieve. For Nene, the defeat of DarkKnightmon would mean the saving of her brother. For Taiki, the defeat of DarkKnightmon would mean that he's kept his promise to help Nene get her brother back. For Kyria, the defeat of DarkKnightmon would mean that one of the biggest challenges to his dominance of the digital world would be gone. And also, because he's working in the shadows and so obviously manipulating everyone, he comes off as a mysterious puppet master that has secretly been causing all of the events throughout this entire season. From kidnapping you, to getting Nene to work for him, to using the negative energy he collected from both Kyria and Nene to create one of the most powerful weapons in the Bagger Army arsenal that is used by all the top generals. One of those top generals being Nene's brother Yu, who he has brainwashed and manipulated into working for the Bagger Army. Now compare this to Baggermon's attempt to manipulate the war, by introducing Kyria into the digital worlds and trying to have him work for the Bagger Army. A plan which failed almost immediately. Yeah, I think DarkKnightmon should make the rest of the decisions from now on. Now you're probably wondering why I'm talking so much about why I think DarkKnightmon would make a better main villain than Baggermon. Well, that's very simple. It's to describe the disappointment of his death. Deja vu, anyone? So yeah, this whole thing starts with DarkKnightmon informing Baggermon that Taiki, Kyria, and Nene are outside the palace. Baggermon then tells DarkKnightmon that the D5 is complete and he can now move and conquer the human world. So our heroes finally meet Baggermon for the first time. He raises his right arm, which extends to the human world, turning all the humans to stone. Baggermon then starts monologuing about stuff to make him seem like a deeper and more interesting villain than he actually is. Meanwhile, if you notice in the background, DarkKnightmon is standing there, like he's waiting for something to happen. So this whole time Baggermon's talking, I'm just thinking, that's interesting, Baggermon. Hey, can we get back to DarkKnightmon? What's he doing? What's he gonna do? The earth then opens up and swallows Taiki, leaving Kiria and Nene to fight Baggermon alone. The heroes make a desperate attempt to attack Baggermon. He lifts his left arm to block it, and boom! DarkKnightmon stabs Baggermon right through the chest. And with Baggermon in this weakened state, he can forcefully cross with him using his Dark's X loader. Not only making DarkKnightmon more powerful, but also giving DarkKnightmon the ability to use Baggermon's dimensional powers. DarkKnightmon reveals that yes, this has been his plan all along. Everything has been leading up to this. The kidnapping of Nene's brother, the creating of the Dark X loader, the D5 project. The whole scheme has gone off, according to DarkKnightmon, pretty much without a hitch. Well, a few, but not too many. I am a little bit confused about his motives, though. He said he did this because he wanted to become stronger than his brother, because he was envious. But the reason why he was envious was because although he was weaker, his brother tolerated him, and that offended him. For some reason, I don't care. DarkKnightmon just fused with Baggermon, and he's looking pretty badass. And this as a twist is actually, pretty good. DarkKnightmon has definitely, like I said, been very proactive. He's pretty much been moving the story along. And this villain switcheroo really, kind of makes sense, and it works. I mean, DarkKnightmon has been an established character, and I can't say, this betrayal comes too out of the blue because I secretly was expecting it was going to happen. And I would have been perfectly happy if that was it. If DarkKnightmon was the main last villain, and that was it, and we never saw Baggermon again for the rest of the story. And I'm not kidding either, and I know that if that happened, then there would be a lot of people complaining there wasn't a good resolution to Baggermon. It was anticlimactic the way he exited the story. But you know what? I don't care. Want to know why? Because DarkKnightmon is so much cooler than Baggermon. So just write him out of the story and have DarkKnightmon take over. The end. But I think we all knew that wasn't how it was going to be. So during his fight with Shoutmon X7, DarkKnightmon learns that he's not as powerful as he thought he was. In fact, he's not even stronger than Baggermon was normally. So after getting knocked on his ass a little bit, he starts to hear a very familiar voice. That's right, it's Baggermon. He's not gone yet. They weren't going to write him out of the story after having him appear for only like 5 minutes. So yeah, Baggermon's back, and apparently he knew DarkKnightmon was planning to betray him the whole time. DarkKnightmon logically asked why he didn't stop him or do anything about it. Good question. Baggermon responds because he could see it would not end as he had hoped. That is not a good answer. Why didn't you just kill him earlier and avoid this whole mess? And then DarkKnightmon charges at Baggermon in a last-ditch effort to kill him, but then gets stabbed in the chest and dies. This is a big middle finger to the audience for several reasons. Number 1. We've seen almost every step of DarkKnightmon's plan throughout the course of the season. We've seen flashbacks of him kidnapping you, we've seen him abuse, manipulate, and use Nene, as well as Kiria in a quest to gather negative energy. We've seen him build the Dark X loader, we've seen his relationship with you with its rise and fall, all culminating where DarkKnightmon stabs Baggermon through the chest and force crosses the both of them. You feel like you've seen an intricate plan being painstakingly built up and finally realized. But then after following DarkKnightmon this whole season, Baggermon reveals that he secretly knew about DarkKnightmon's plans the whole time, making everything DarkKnightmon did to accomplish his goals ultimately meaningless. As his whole plan to usurp his brother is basically squashed within 30 seconds. It makes everything you've watched featuring DarkKnightmon kind of feel like a waste because nothing he did matters. It never really mattered at all. Because Baggermon was always apparently one step ahead of him, at all times. And that kind of relates to the next topic. So, number 2. One of my least favorite lazy writing tropes is this. If you can't make the hero or villain interesting, you just make him the best. Or at least better than all the interesting characters. We saw this on blast with Taiki, where the writers didn't actually make Taiki interesting, they just made him the best at everything. And way better than more interesting characters like Kiria. And that's pretty much what's happening here. DarkKnightmon is a far more interesting character than Baggermon, but Bagramon managed to outsmart DarkKnightmon, making him quote-unquote better. You see, this type of writing tactic is usually employed to make a bland character have the illusion of depth and coolness by making him superior, while tearing down and humiliating the better written characters. And also on a personal level, I think a story about a younger brother who has always felt inferior to his sibling, hatching a diabolical and complex plan to get revenge on him, and to finally establish himself as the alpha in the relationship, and then having his plan succeed, is a better story with a better conclusion than just having DarkKnightmon go through all of this trouble and all of this work just to have his plan succeed for less than an episode before Bagramon steps back in and says, "Hey, I'm still better than you," right before stabbing him through the chest. In fact, why is Bagramon the one that kills DarkKnightmon? Which brings me to my next point. Number 3. Why is Bagramon the one that kills DarkKnightmon? I mentioned this before when I was talking about Nene, that if Nene couldn't save her brother because Taiki was doing it, why couldn't she be the one that defeats DarkKnightmon? I mean, she has the most connections to him. He's the whole reason she came to the digital world. So wouldn't it make sense from a storytelling perspective to have Nene kill DarkKnightmon as a form of revenge against all the hell he put her through? Kiria, to a lesser extent, would have been an okay person to finally defeat DarkKnightmon, seeing how DarkKnightmon's kind of like the right-hand man to Bagramon, and Kiria's kind of become the right-hand man to Taiki. And to an even lesser extent, I guess Taiki could have been the one that defeated DarkKnightmon, keeping in the tradition of Taiki doing everything. But the fact that Bagramon does it is really anticlimactic, and just a really sad ending to an otherwise decent villain. Okay, last one. Number 4. This whole Bagramon DarkKnightmon forced crossing thing is a really cool idea, and I wish that it wasn't shoved into the last 2 or 3 episodes of the season. I would have much rather have had it happen halfway through the season. Like have Bagramon confront the heroes, he beats them but he still gets injured, and DarkKnightmon, capitalizing on Bagramon's wounded state, force crosses them together, and then declares himself leader of the Bagra army and moves forward to initiate the D5 program. I also would have kind of played off more with the whole idea of DarkKnightmon and Bagramon being conscious and sentient inside this body. Like I've had a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde vibe going on where they're both fighting for control of it, which could have also started an internal conflict inside the Bagra army, with Tactimon probably being more loyal to the Bagramon side of the fusion, and with probably Lilithmon being more loyal to the DarkKnightmon side, seeing how she's just kind of more of an opportunist that way. But yeah, a lot of cool ideas they could have done with this whole concept, but it's wasted because we only get to see this happen during the last few episodes of the season. In conclusion, DarkKnightmon overall was an okay to decent villain. While certainly not the strongest in the entire series, he's probably the strongest in this season. And he did introduce a fair amount of cool ideas, but these ideas either never come to fruition or are executed in a very poor way, leaving people like me very unsatisfied. So let's finish off the villains and talk about the Death Generals. Now I honestly don't have a lot to say about the Death Generals, mainly because I don't think they have a lot of character to them, and I find most of them forgettable. I mean, I actually forgot what they looked like and who they were after watching the season. They all kind of blend together to me. I mean, they're all the same kind of psychopath, sadistic monster, with very little variation except for some weird power they have. In fact, the only 3 I can remember after watching the season was Olgmon, Gravimon, and Apollomon. Mainly because Olgmon and Apollomon were the only one that weren't snickering psychopaths and offered a little bit of variety, while I only remembered Gravimon because he was the Death General that provided over Kiria's arc. But yeah, there's not a lot to say, I think, about them. I can tell you that I think overall they represent some very bad pacing, because there's 7 of them and fighting one takes about 3 episodes. And because of that, we get 2 things. 1, we don't get much look into their characters individually, and 2, we get an evolution overload. I mean, we got Shoutmon having a super evolution, but that immediately becomes obsolete when he enters the digital world, because then you gotta fight the Death Generals, and then Kiria has to get an evolution to fight that Death General. But then that evolution is immediately obsolete when fighting the next Death General, so we need to have a new evolution where Shoutmon and Zeki Metal Greymon combine together. And Nene can't have an evolution, so we just give her Mervamon and call it even. Then they start fighting Gravimon, and then he makes all the previous evolutions obsolete, so we gotta have a new evolution, Shoutmon X7. I feel like we never get to appreciate the new evolutions we get because we just get new evolutions immediately afterwards. I guess I should at least mention some of the Death Generals. So let's just talk about Ogmon and Apollomon, because they're the only two that really end up mattering. And I say that in a very loose sense. Ogmon is a Viking pirate who sails the Golden Sea looking for two things. One, his lost superweapon, and two, friends. Yeah, Ogmon has a weird fascination with making friends, and has overall twisted morals on what friends are. To Ogmon, a friend is someone you hypnotize with a magical chant, and then force to live on the ship with you. And then we got Apollomon. He's not Leomon. He's not gonna die at all. Or make some kind of heroic sacrifice later on. He's not Leomon. He's not Leomon. He's Apollomon. Completely different. But yeah, Apollomon is apparently a quote-unquote good Death General, because he realizes what he's doing is horrible and wants to stop it. But he knows he can't stand up to Baggermon, so he keeps just trying to, I guess... I don't know what he's doing. Okay, so he's presiding over some type of heaven-hell land, and he says that he wants to fight Baggermon and destroy the Bagger army. And when Taiki asks, then why is he torturing all of the citizens below? Apollomon responds that it's better than killing them. I call bullcrap on this because I think killing them would be the best thing to do right now. Because the D5 is being powered by the negative energy of the citizens below, so killing them would cut off the power source that they're getting because the citizens would be dead and therefore not feeling miserable because they would be dead. So killing them would just cut off the power source for the D5, at least in your zone. And I have a hard time taking Apollomon's holier-than-thou stance on keeping them alive, because the options are you either keep your citizens alive and torture them for years in endless agony, or you mercifully kill them. It's not like death has any consequence, because we already know that if Taiki wins, then everyone just comes back to life. And if Taiki loses, well, everyone dies anyway. So from my perspective, you're being unnecessarily cruel and helping the Bagger army. Oh yeah, and Apollomon gets possessed by something called a Whispered. Makes him super evil or something, I don't care. So fast forwarding, all the Death Generals are dead, and DarkKnightmon resurrects them all into one giant monster. It's here Ogmon realizes, gasp, the genocidal, mass-murdering, world domination and world destruction organization isn't really keen on making friends. So then he defects to the hero side, and Apollomon manages to sacrifice himself to send Taiki and all the heroes and Ogmon back to the real world. And Ogmon dies almost immediately, and then points out the fact that yes, it was kind of dumb to have him come back to life to die almost immediately. And that's all that's really important, I guess. I don't know. There should have only been like 4 Death Generals, and they should have been well fleshed out villains, and not just whatever the hell that thing is. So yeah, like I said, I don't really care about the Death Generals that much, so we're just gonna end it off here. And we're winding down, we've got 2 more characters to talk about, and then we'll talk about the ending. So we're almost done. Great. Good night.
Et que la Zoubida aurait bien voulu aller danser, alors elle a demandé Samir l'autorisation pour aller danser. Samir a dit, Zabi Walou ma fille, tu vas te cocher ta suite, tu vas te cocher ta suite, il t'y répond pas.